All right, Jim, and then we'll take another.
Councilmember, I know that tax increment financing has been done in Minnesota since the early 80s, and there was a study just done a few years ago that showed that actually it didn't work. It didn't produce more tax benefits for Minneapolis-St. Paul. So I'm wondering if you need any support in terms of studies that show that TIFs aren't really all they claim to be.
So we've seen several situations because the base of the TIF is that the property, the government is going to recoup their money, our money. I keep saying there, but I'm in the government, so I'm going to say our, for lack of, our money based on the property values around that particular development going up. And we've seen instances where it's a high risk. That's one of the reasons why developers saying they want to do the project only if the TIF is involved, because they feel like they may invest and it may not return on investment. These are business people. They want, you're in business to make money. It is what it is. And we've seen projects like, it's one on Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't know if you all recall. It's called the Grays. When the Grays got built, they were trying to get all this money to do, it was like, it wasn't Whole Foods, it was a Yes Organic Market.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of money, time, emphasis in making sure they can get this Yes Organic Market, but guess what happened? It closed. Then there was another store after that. It closed. And so that's why I want to see the study that they said they did 2 studies. If you were at the hearing, you go back, they said it was between DEMPED and the office of the chief financial officer said they did a study to ensure that this is what was needed in this particular area. So we definitely need support. There's going to be another hearing at some point that's going to come up, and a community meeting will come up as well.
Okay, there's a few hands. I want to make sure we get some gender equity in here. We've heard a couple of men so far. So I'm gonna go with Reggie, but I'm gonna go with Renee after that. Go ahead, because Reggie had his hand up first.
So I remember you saying that DHS spent the most money. It's my guess that DCHD owns the most property. And so what exactly, how does that play into the whole TIF conversation? Because there are a lot of lots that DHCD has around here, and trying to figure out, with development, how's the TIF going to affect the lots that we actually control as government? So,
indirectly, though, the value of that land is going to go up. And it opens up the doors for more large buildings, because one of the things you're facing in this community is low buildings. It's going to increase the density in the community. So air rights is now going to be worth more than the land rights, because at some point the land is going to be bought up. But people because one building go up high, everybody else feel like they can build high. And I'm seeing that a lot in other wars. I was in Ward 5, and I've seen a lot of people adding additions on their houses, going up. I was like, wow, this is a new phenomenon in D.C. But it's going to set the precedence for those lots and those properties that the government owns. But it's not just DHCD that owns properties, other government entities that own property in and around the city as well. And they just did a RFP trying to get those properties out of inventory, but they also about to use some money they have now to buy out more properties throughout DC and enforce eminent domain in some areas in the district as well.
Renee?
Oh, my question was, when we were doing the rounds last week, one of the council members' staffs mentioned, I think it was Allen's staff, mentioned that there was legislation about TIF. Their legislation was just more transparency, but
what office?
It was we were in Allen's office.
Okay.
But he said that Councilmember Allen and Silverman had legislation on TIF. My question is, it seemed from talking to them it was more transparent, because I asked about clawbacks and some other requirements, and I think that legislation is going to die. But can we try to push, maybe make a grand push with our organization and you, and maybe with Council Members Silverman and Allen, to strengthen the TIF legislation so that it has specific requirements, so that they might fail because they don't want specific job requirements or specific housing requirements or specific clawback requirements if they don't do what they say.
Yeah.
Right now, it seems like there's none of that. The council just said, oh yeah, this is good. They seem like, and just goes with it.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that in reading some things that North Carolina and some other states have, although many TIF programs have been weakened over the years, because they used to be stronger when that was tax increment finance first developed, but maybe we can really put a strong law forward, and maybe we can convince at least those 2 council members to join in and try to build more.
So I have not seen the piece of legislation you talked about with Allen and Silverman, but I do know that we have been working on a clawback piece
Okay.
to TIF and other development projects going on throughout the city, because there's so many levels of mismanagement and misuse of funds of the DC government that we give away, and there's no way to hold them accountable. And even with on the development side, we have a community organization in Ward 8 called Development Economic Opportunities. We found that a lot of local developers or people that do construction or drywall or anything that's involved in construction, who are subs to the big time developers, they're not getting their pay. So they might work on a project, they may get a contract maybe for $300,000, and they might complete the project, then they're not getting paid on time. They're told you can settle for $240, and because their payroll is so backed up, most people that settle, and it's jeopardizing their funding, jeopardizing them staying in business. And so we are thinking about stuff not just along TIF yes, but also around other projects that DC gives funds to, because we're finding a lot of people not in compliance. So we will look for your support in trying to cultivate something that works. And if we get collegiate support on something, that'll be even more beneficial to me, that way I don't have to lobby and push as hard.
Okay, let me just see the hands of remaining questions. Eric and Peter, is that it? Okay, and Ricky? Okay, Eric, then we'll go.
Okay, well, what you said about these contractors doing favors and so forth, that's kind of personal. I actually work for somebody who's being jerked around, you know, and he talks about how there are other companies outside of DC that are not even licensed to work in DC. And that they're being given these contracts by developers who are, you know, just giving favors to their friends from Baltimore, you know, and so what we figured out, and also he's not been paid some of his city contracts, and so I guess my question to you would be, would it be possible to create some kind of database of contractors that are licensed to work in DC and those that aren't licensed and so forth, and of those who have not paid in the past, those who are prime contractors, because what the city says in the paperwork is if you don't pay your subs the way you're supposed to, in the future we'll consider that when you come for another city contract, you know, but you don't keep a record of who didn't pay, you know, and so forth and so on. So can we fix that problem while you're talking about it?
I think it should be fixed. I'm not going to commit to say I'm working on that right now. It's definitely an issue that we need to address. I'm not going to go on record and say I'm going to work on that at the moment because I have other pressing issues that I'm working on. But I'm committed to coming back, trying to figure out what we can carve out, because I don't even know at this point what committee I'm going to chair next year. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to spend my time between now and January preparing, because I had to hire staff the whole 9 to get ready for that. And a lot of the committees that address that, I'm not on those committees. And so I am on the housing committee, but if there's something specifically that you would like for me to look at, I'll do it on an individual basis. But to say I'm going to take on that the big challenge, I can't commit to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you trying to add to that point, Jamar?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I give you my information because I want to help you with that. I'm working on that every day.
He wants to connect with you. Okay.
I'm working on that every day.
Oh.
I'll make sure I give you my number and we can
Okay.
work on that together.
All right.
Okay, Peter and then Ricky. Go ahead.
When they say that you can have a vote,
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, well, before I ask you my question, I wanted to get a clarification on the last one. Did you say, or are you saying that the city may let contracts to companies that are in default on paying their prior contractors, subcontractors? Does that situation exist?
Yes, every day.
It should be easy to prevent that. What is the DC Attorney General have to say about it? That's violating our laws.
So I think in 2016 was the first time in DC history that we ever even fined anybody for being in compliance on construction projects. And so it's been very minimum. And so we just seeing people getting fined. People been getting away with it for 30, 40 years.
Do you think it should be a general bar to letting a contract to any company that is in default on their previous contract?
I'm gonna just say this: a borrower is a slave to the lender. And a lot of these big companies have been influencing a lot of the politics in DC for a very long time.
Okay, well, my question is this. You talked before about the division between the homeowners and the renters. That homeowners like the tips because they want to see their property value go up. Is that correct? Was that a generally correct?
It's a few. I mean, they're gonna say homeowner. I'm a homeowner. There's several homeowners in the community, but it is a few homeowners in this particular community that would like to get the tip because they want the amenities. I'm like, we can get amenities outside of giving $60 billion to a developer to build all this stuff. We can get amenities. That type of money you can do a lot.
I would like to know what is your view of the role of flippers in that business? The people who buy houses because they're cheap and look for the property value to go up quickly and they want to sell it within a few years.
That's the nature of DC and real estate. And, you know, that's
That could be and should be regulated by law. The person who has bought a property not for his own residential purpose, but as a speculation. So there should be regulation that prevents them from profiting from sale of that within a certain number of years. Like if you sell it.
gonna be
Yeah,
hard
there
to
used
do.
to be,
It's gonna be hard.
there used to be a policy around that. I believe it was overturned or never implemented, but it was a speculation tax. I think it happened 20, 30 years ago.
It's a function of tax law. So if a person sells a property at a profit within, say, 5 years, that ought to be 100% profit, 100% tax on that profit, so that people would do it.
All right, well, it's a good, we're taking notes of these suggestions that you all are bringing into the conversation. Let me, Ricky, did you want to hold your
I
question?
have one question, so if we're gonna go into detail on it, I can wait with it.
Okay, and also
Understand
we're
how to
waiting,
say it.
we're gonna talk about Brooklyn Manor TIF also, and Will is gonna speak to that, but we're waiting for a couple of the ladies from the tenant association to arrive. Ms. Tillman?
A lot of problems if we were talking about going to DCRA. And when Gray was the mayor, Gray took the lawyers from under the Attorney General and put them in DCRA to report directly to the mayor. Our Attorney General cannot sue ourselves. Therefore, the Attorney General cannot go after those violations in DCRA because Gray moved those attorneys to go right under the mayor.
So I'm not sure if that happened during Gray's administration or not, but I
It
just,
did.
so
I am.
I know that when we started having an independent attorney general, which is Carl Racine, there was a lot of power and a lot of moves being made right before he even got sworn in to ensure that, you know, his power was weakened.
That was great.
It wasn't great, it was Muriel.
Yeah, it was after the election because I had ran for office and lost. And I was working there when it happened. But what the government essentially does is it assigned the lawyers to work directly with the agency that reports directly to the mayor. So DCRA has its own attorney generals that work for the agency. DCPS, you name the agency, so that's how it goes now. But the Office of Attorney General still has some type of influence when it comes to cases involving DC. But like you said, DC's not going to sue itself, and that's the problem. So.
Okay, so one of the things we want to do today is hopefully come to consensus, or at least majority rule, I guess we'll figure that out, about a resolution from this group, a position on the TIF. Okay, and so we don't have to do that right this minute, but before we go today, we want to make a resolution to oppose the TIF unless it incorporates some of the things that you all just mentioned, some of the things that the councilman's been talking about. So if I could just ask the councilman quickly, what are the top goals that you're working towards that we can include as we advocate with you?
One of the things is to ensure there's business equity from the community, and that even from the construction to the stores, because we don't want to bring in all these stores from all these other places. We got people in the community that can open up their own stores in the community, and circulate their own dollars within the community.
Yes.
So we want that, and even in a community benefit agreement, right? With a $300 million project, you know how many guaranteed jobs they put in this agreement? 15. 15. Hey, they said, well, 15 is just a low number, just a threshold. You're saying it like, that's the end all number, but why would we put 15 jobs in for guaranteed jobs? In a project, we give them $60 million.
Right.
And so that's one of the things you want to ensure is that the community benefit agreement touches all income level of people and all types of people in the ward, because right now it touches 3 different organizations. I'm not going into detail about the organizations. Some of them do good work and some of them I don't know. I'm just leave it like that. So we also want to have some hiring practice in the community, some office space in the community that the community can use. And also ensure there's actual. So one of the things I want to do that the developer committed to, and that on record, go back and check it. I asked the developer if the community want to pool together its resources to be a participant in this deal. Could that be possible? And he said yes. And so we should be creating some type of community equity pact. Well, if this person has $100, $200, $1,000, ready to put their money in and have an equity part, even if it's 0.0001%. Because in 20 years, that might equal something. And that might go to somebody's grandchild. And they agreed to do that. So we're working with some business people to put together apparatus where community people from the community can participate in economic development deals in our own community. And so we've asked for a commitment as relates to that. Because what I did was, I just did hypothetically, it's 75,000 people in Ward 8, 75,000 people in Ward 7. And if half of those put up $1 per household, that'll be almost $900,000 a year. If a dollar, that's $12 per person each household, for 12 months a year, and you just say 1/3, right? That's $300,000. You add up 2-3 years, that's still $900. It's a piece of chunk of change that somebody can benefit from in the long haul. We can put up our own money in a deal like this to ensure residents have some equity in their own community. So when you look up 10 years from now, they can own something or say they're a part of something in our own community. It's not original with me. I'm just trying to dissect it and put all the pieces together. So that's one of the things we're looking at as well.
Okay, so we are now joined by the ladies from the Brooklyn Manor Association. We wanted to start bringing into the conversation the Brooklyn Manor Rhode Island Avenue TIF, but Miss Mary